But not necessarily transferring. I'll just have to answer that question. Then in a drop to them. You know, should be nice, long
So is it only the job?
With you, you're not going to change, you might as well spend all your cash in the auction house today. So can I ask you once again, guys, to use your imaginations? Have you all got your team names, by the way? Do you know what you're going to be called? No? Quick, whisper amongst yourselves and get that. Okay, we're no longer in Hartlepool College of Further Education. We are, in fact, in the world-renowned auction house of Weaves and Juster. So I'm going to ask you all to put your hands together and give a very warm welcome to Mr. Weaves himself.
Thank you. excited for the auction? Apathy, that was apathy, I believe. There. So, what are we buying today? Well, we are buying what are the key ingredients of a system that best supports children, families and communities. Or, if we're going to put that as an acronym, it would be WAHATKIT EOR ASTABERTSIKAFE. Okay? So that's what we're, trips off the tongue, isn't it? So that is what you are buying today. Now, a couple of things. You are going to be bidding in increments of 25. Okay, increments of £25. Make sure your bid is very clear. Don't bid against your own team. You're laughing, but it happens all the time. So try not to do that. What else do I have to mention?
They will not necessarily appear in the same order.
They're not in the order that's on the list. So if you had that planned, that's just gone out the window. Okay? Make sure your bids are nice and clear. Does everybody understand? Let's find out your team names though. Let's start with team 1 over there. What is your team name?
We are the collaborators.
The Collaborators.
Well, we know what you're bidding for on the list, I guess.
Team 2, what is your team name? Sorry?
Articles Reindeer.
Articles of Reindeer. Yeah. 3, table 3 right there. Table 3, what's your name?
Team 3.
Brilliant. My favourite name so far. Team 4. The Visionaries. Doesn't matter, nobody's going to see it. Team 5. There's Team 5.
5 for Futures.
5. 4. The number 4. Futures. That's what I've written down. That's what it's going to be. And Team 6. Team 6. Good. I like it. I like it. Okay. Is everybody ready for the first item that you're going to bid for? You all look absolutely thrilled. And the first one is, relationships are cultivated. How important is that to your team? Relationships are cultivated. I'll just say, by the way, my word is final. And if we have any disagreements, the door is there. We also have Joy here who's keeping an eye on numbers, so you can't cheat. There is no credit in this auction house. Okay, who's going to give me £25? Who's going to give me £25 there? Team 2, £25. Do I see 50 anywhere? Do I see 50 anywhere? 50, Team 6. Bidders against you. Bidders against you at 50, 75. 75, Team 2. 75, they're shaking their head. 75, I'll sell for £75. You've got £1,000. It's not real money. Fine, I'll sell for £75. £75 going once. £75 going. Oh, £100. Team 4, very good for the Visionaries. Team 4 there. Team 4, I'll sell it for, was £100, £100. £100 going once. £100 going twice. Sold for £100 to the Visionaries. Very good. Team 1, join in whenever you like. All right. Okay, the next lot is learning culture. Learning culture. How important is that to your team? Who's going to give me £25, £25, £25? Team 6 straight in there. £25, £25. Team 5, or the 5 just Team 5. £50, £50. Team 5, £50. I'll sell it for £50. 75 at the back there, 75 on Team 6. Is that 100? 100, welcome to the auction, Team 1. That's £100, £100. 125, 125, you'll see 150. 125, I'll sell it for 125. I'll sell it for 125. 150, 150 Team 1. 150, 150 going once. 150 going twice. Sold for £150 to the Collaborators. Very good, very good. £150 to the Collaborators there. How important is it to be holding partners to account? How important is that to you? Who's going to give me £25 for that? £25, £25. Holding partners to £25. The Team 6 are always bidding for that. I like that. I like that in a team. £25, I'll sell it for £25. £25 work. Oh, here we go. £50 here, £50. Bidders against you, £50. It's going to be 75. 75, I'll sell it for 50. I'll sell it for 50. It's not real money, you can't take it with you. 75, 75, £75 there. £75 with Team 5. £75, £75 going once. £75 going twice. £75 with 3 times, sold for £75 to team 5. Holding partners to account, £75. An absolute bargain. Now, do we live in a no-blame culture? How important is that to your organisation, to your team? A no-blame culture. Who's going to be £25? Team 6 go and give £25. You usually do. They're not interested in £25. Who wants this? No blame culture. Team 1, thank you very much, £25. £25 to team 1. £25 of not real money that you can't take away with you. £50. £50. 75. 75. Thank you. Welcome back to the room. £75 team 6, £75, £75, do I hit see 100? Shaking heads, do I see 100? Team 3, join in whenever you like, £75, £75, I'll sell it for £75, a no blame culture, £75 going once, £75 going twice, sold to team 6 for £75. I was going to accept that as another bid there, but that would be too cruel. However, in this room, you do have permission to challenge, so that's absolutely fine. I'll take that as a bid for £25 team 6. £25 straight in there, £25 team 6. Or welcome to the auction team 3. £50, £50 team 3. £50, £50, £50. I'll sell it for £50. Oh, 75, 100. I'll see 100 there, 100 team 1. 125 team 3. 125 bidders against you. 125 team 3. 125, do I see 150? Do I see 150 anywhere? I'll sell it for 125. 125 going once to team 3. 125 going twice. Sold for £125 to team 3, who are actually called team 3. You should be very pleased with that. In fact, you could be celebrating achievement with that. Who's getting me £25 for celebrating achievement? £25, £25, team 2, £25, 50. Is that a tentative bid? Is that a bid? £50, £50, team 3, £50. Do I see 75 anywhere? 75 at the front, 100. Do I see 125? 100, 100, team 3, 100 going once, 100 going twice. Sold for £100. A bargain. Now, you can't take the money with you. Can I just point that out? It's not good. Okay. Now this is a bit of a mouthful. Doing with, not doing for approach. How important is that to your team? Who's getting £25 straight in? 50, 75. People want this. 100, 100, 100 in the front. 125, 150, 150, 175, 175, 200. Now things are getting 225, 250, 250 for team 3, 250, 275, team 5, 275, 275, 300, 300, do I see 325 anywhere? 300, I'll sell it for 325, 350, team 3, 350, I'll sell it for 350, 350 going once, 350 going twice, 375, 375, 375 going once, 375 going twice, sold for £375. And that was, yeah, a little bit of a smattering of applause there. 375, team 5, the visionaries. Now, do you have zero tolerance of ineffective practice? Who doesn't? Who's going to give me £25? Who's going to give me £25? £25, team 6 at the back there, £25. Do I see 50 at the front end? 50. Very good, 50. £50 at the front, £50 at the front, bidders against you. 75, 75, team 6. Ooh, new bidder, team 1, thank you very much. 100, 100 at the back there, team 1. 100, £100, £100 going 125. Bidders against you, 125. The team 6, 125. 125 going once. 125 going twice. 150, yeah. Yeah, 150, team 2, 150, team 2. Bidders against you at the back there. 150 at the front here, 150, 175. 175, bidders against you, 175. Do I see 200? I'll sell it for 175. 175 going once. 175 going twice. Sold for £175. She's so happy. How important to you Is partnership working? Partnership working. Who's going to give me £25? £25, I see £25, 25, 50, 75, 75, 75, 75, 100. Keep your hand up, I'll take this a little bit. 125, 125. It's the bits with you, 22, 125. Do I see 150? 150 at the back, 150, 175, 23, 175. She looks shocked. She's 175, 200, 225. Do I see 250? Do I see 250? 225, team 1. 225 going once. 225 going twice. 250. But it's against you, team 2. 250, 275, you bid it. 275, 275. Do I see 300? Do I see 300? 300 at the back there. 300, team 1. 300, 325, 325. 325, team 2. 325, do I see 350 anywhere? 325 going once. 325 going twice. Sold for £325. Team 2, or the Hartlepool Real Deal. 325. How important is collaboration to you? Let's find out, shall we? Yes, we shall. Who'll give me £25 for collaboration? £25. £25. £25. Thank you very much. I'll sell it for £25. Collaboration, I'll sell it. 50. 75. 75 at the front here. 75. 75. 100 at the back. 100. 100. Don't see 125 anywhere. I'll sell it for £100. 125. Bids against you. 125. 125, 150, 150, team 1, 150, you'll see 175, team 4, 175, 175 going once, 175 going twice, sold for £175. They are very, very pleased about this. There was a little clap under the table. Now, effective communication. Oh, here we go. Can I just advise you to never play poker, team 6? Never play poker. Who's going to give me £25 for this, team 6? Oh, team 1, team 2, £50. Who's going to give me 75? Who's going to give me 75? 75, team 3, 75. 75, team 3, 75, 100, team 1, 100. 125, 125, 125. 150, 150 at the front here, team 4, 150, 175, 175, I'll sell it for £175, 200, 225, 225, team 6, 250, team 3, team 6, 275, 275, I'll sell it for £275, 300, 300, the bid is against you, team 6, 300, you're going to 325, 350, do I see 375? 375 in the room? I'll sell it for 375, team 6. 375. 375 going on 400! 400, team 1. 400. 400 going once. 425, team 3. 425. 425 going once. 425 going twice. 450, team 6. 450. 450 going once. 450 going twice. Sold for £450 to team 6, who really, really, really wanted that. Bog off. Okay. Bog off, ladies and gentlemen. You all know what that means? You buy one, you get one free. Are you free? You get it, you buy one, you get one free. This is shared agenda and mutual respect. Bog off. Bog off, ladies and gentlemen. Who's going to give me £25, £25, £25? It's a bog off, it's a bog off. £25, team 1, £25. 25, 50, 75. Who's going to give me 100 for a bog off? 100. You already were bidding 75, but I'll take that 100 anyway. You were roughly in, I'll take it all, £100 for team 3. £100, it's a bog off. What is it? Do you want to know what it is? Shout out what it is, Jill.
Shared agenda and mutual respect, it's a bog off.
125, 125, team 4, 125, 125. I'll sell it for £125. 150, team 6, 150. 150. I'll sell it for 150. 175. 175, team 1. 175. 175 going once. 175 going twice. Sold for £175. A bargain. For the bog off. Now, ladies and gentlemen, it's that time virtually none of you have been waiting for. It's the wild card. Apathy, that's the most apathetic I've ever heard. What have we got? What have we missed off? You can't have all of the other lots. You can't have everything is fine from now on and forever. Well, what have we missed? Who's going to give you £25 straight in Team 6? £25. 50, 75. No, you don't need to tell us. It's you already have. And it's on £75, so you just up there big. £75. £75 to Team 4. £75. 100, Team 3, 100, 100. I'll sell it for £100. 125, 150. Do I see 175 anyway? I'll sell it to Team 4 for 150. Team 3, 175. 175. 200, 200. 200, 225. Team 3, 225. 225, I'll sell it for £225. 250. 275. 300. 300, Team 4. 300 going once. 300 going twice. 325. Do I see 350? Do I see 350? Team 3, do I see 350? 350, Team 3. Do I see 375? 375. I'll sell it for £350. £350 going once. £350 going twice. Sold! You snooze, you lose. The thing is with bidding, it's all about consistency, you see? So I'm linking these, it's absolutely incredible. Consistency, ladies and gentlemen, how important is that? To be consistent. Who's going to give me £25? £25, £25 Team 1, £25, consistency. £25, I'll sell it, £50, 75, 75, 100, 100 Team 4, 100 going once, 100 going twice, I'll sell it for £100. 125, Team 6, 125, have they got enough money? They've got enough money, 125 for that. Who's going to be 150? Who's going to be 150 for this? I'll sell it to Team 6 for 125, 125, 150, 150 Team 4, 150 going once, 150 going twice, sold for £150. Are you jumping at the knot or are you just happy? How important are shared systems to you? Shared systems. Who's going to give me £25? £25, £25. £25 is shared. £25, Team 1. I'll sell it for £25, £50. Bidders against Team 1, £50. 75, £75. £75, £75. 100, 100 Team 6. 100 going once. 125, 125. Team 5, 125, who's going to give me 150? I'll sell it for £125. £125 going once, £125 going twice. Sold for £125 to Team 5. Give themselves a polite golf clap there. Which is very good. 125. Okay. Practice sharing. How important is that? Practice sharing. I understand both the words, just not coupled together. Practice sharing. How important is that to you? Who's going to give me £25? Let's find out. £25, £25, £25. £25, thank you very much, Team 6. £25, I'll sell it for £25 then. £25 going once. 50, you can't let them get away with it, can you? You even surprised yourself there. £50. £50, I'll sell it for £50. 75, 100, 100, table in front of 100, I'll sell it for £100, £100 going once, £100 going twice, sold for £100. Take this table here, where are you going, Joe? To table 4. Table 4, it's the visionaries. There we go. For £125. Okay. Jill's exhausted. Transparency. How important is transparency? Let's find out. Who's going to give me £25, £25, £25? £25, thank you, Team 1. Team 1, £25. I'll sell it for £25 then. £25 going once for transparency of the real money, not real money that you can't do it. £50, thank you very much. £50. Team 6, £50. I'll sell it for £50, transparency. £50 going once. 75, Team 1. 75, they're having a lovely time in the back there. I'm not sure why, but they are. £75, Team 1. £75 going once, a bargain. £75 going twice. Sold for £75. Very good. There must be something that you're all looking forward to. I've missed it out. Okay, how's it going so far? Let's see. How is everybody? Is everybody alright? Are you all getting the lots you wanted? Good. Good. How important are skilled practitioners? Oh, there was a slight lull and hush there. Who's giving me £25, £25, skilled practitioners? £25 straight in, £25. Who's giving me £50? £50, team 3, 75, team 4, 100, team 5, 125, team 3, 125, 125, 125, 150, team 1, 150, 175, 175, 175, 200, 200, team 3, 200 going once, 225, is that 250, 250, bidders against you. 275, 275, 275, 300, 300, 300, 325, they want this. 300, 325, 325, new bid, 325, 350, 375, 400. Do I see 400 from table 5? 400, 400 from table 5, 400, 400 going one, 425, team 1, 425, 425, do I see 450 anywhere? 425, team 1, 425 going once, 425 going twice, sold for £425, they are delighted, team 1. Everybody's doubting everybody else's money now. How important is it for you to have a shared vision? A shared vision. Who's going to give me £25, £25, £25 for shared vision? £25, £50, £50, team 4, 75, 75, 100, team 3, 100, 100, shared visions, 100, team 3, I'll sell it for £100, 125, team 4, 125, just 150, team 3, 150, 150, 150 going once, 175, 175, team 4, 175 going once, 200, 200 bidders against your team, 4, 200, 225, 225, 225, 250, team 3, 250, 250 going once, 250, 275, team 4, 275, 275, 275 going, 300, team 3, 300, team 3, 300 going once, 300 going, 325, team 4, 325, 350, team 3, 350, 350 going once, 350 going twice, sold for £350 to team 3. Really patronising round of applause. Okay. I don't know. Clarity of role. Maybe they're keeping that powder dry. They keep that powder dry. Okay. Clarity of role. How important is clarity of role? Who's giving me £25, £25, £25? Clarity of role. £25, £25, £25, team 6, £25. I'll sell it for £25. £25 going once. £50, £50, £50, I'll sell it for £50, £50 going once, £50 going twice, sold for £50 for team 5. Absolute bargain. Bog off, ladies and gentlemen, bog off. It is time for another bog off, and it is effective leadership and shared ways of working. Oh. Who's going to start me with £50 for that? Who's going to start me with £50? £50 team 1, 75, 75, 100, 100, 125, 125, 150, 150, 175, 175, 175, 200, team 5, 200, 200, 225, 250, 250 at the front here, 250, 250 going on, 275, bidders against you, 275, 300, 300 at the front here, 300, 325, 325, I see 350, 325, 350, 350, 375, 400, 400, 400. Do I see 45 over there? 45, 425, I see 450, I see 450, 450, 450, team 2, 450 going once, 450 going twice, 475. Well, you can't do 475, 450, 450, I'm afraid you don't have the money, 450 going once, 450 going twice, Sold for £450 to Team 2. That's a great deal, and the real deal now. How important do you think is investment in the front line? How important is that? Who's going to give me £25 for investment in the front line? Who's going to give me £25, £25? £25, Team 6, 25, 75, 50, 75, 75 in front, 75 in front, 75 in front, 75 in front, 75 in front there. I'll set it for £75, 100, 125, 125, 125, Team 2, 125, 150, 175, 175 in the front here, 175, so I see 200, 200, Team 2, 200, 225, Team 4, 225, 250, 250, Team 5, 250 going once, 250, 275, 275 in the front here, 275, 300, Team 5, 300, 300 going once, 325, 325, 325, 325 going once, 325 going twice. Sold for £325 to Team 4, the Visionaries. £325. It's a bit of going on about money there, ladies and gentlemen. Okay. How important is it for investment in strategic leaders? This is the penultimate lot. The penultimate lot. Investment in strategic leaders. Who's going to give me £25, £25, Team 1, £25. Who's going to give me £50 for that? I'll sell it for 25. 50 in the front here, 50 in the front, do I see 75, do I see 75, 75, 100, 100, 100, Team 1, 100 going once, 125, Team 5, 125, do I see 150, 125, 125, 150, Team 1, 150, 175, 175, Team 5, 175 going once, 175 going twice, sold for £175 to Team 5. It's the final lot, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, where to go? Okay, it's the final lot, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, if you have to ask, it's twice. And it is openness to change. Openness to change. £25 bid straight in there. £50. £50. 75 at the back. 75. Do I see 100? 100 at the front. 125. Do I see 150 anyway? 150, 175, 175, Team 2, 175, 200 at the back, 225, 225, Team 5, 225, 225, 250, Team 6, 250, 250, 250 going once, 250 going twice. Sold for 250, yeah! Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. That brings us to the end of the auction. Give yourselves a round of applause. I hope you achieved and bought the lots that you wanted, and if you didn't, there's no refunds. Thank you very much.
So how did you all level work with it? Did you get what you wanted? Yeah, one of the main. Where's the teams? Quite happy to do purchases? Sort of, okay. Well, you're now going to have to really invest in what you just purchased. Because what we'd like to do now is, rather than there being a bunch of words on a laminate card, I'd like you to describe for us what this actually means to you. So why do you place most value on these particular elements to be different? Okay? So as a team, you now have 5-10 minutes to put up the short presentation based on why you think these are the real key ingredients for you. What do these words mean to you as well, rather than just saying, oh, effective leadership? Give some examples of where that works well, what that actually means to you. Okay? So you've got 5-10 minutes, short presentation, based on what you've got and why. Why are they the most important elements?
Share the journey
Oh, very
we should, yeah. Yeah, beautiful, beautiful, like that. A song would be about presentation. Yeah, just thinking of it, just something up beautiful. There's a girl, these are the So what we're going to hear are key ingredients for you in terms of creating, especially for families and children and communities. Now we had 16s. In terms of what you place most value in this room as a group of professionals, we had, for top scores of the day, we had skilled practitioners, which is really important to us, that came in at £425. Effective leadership and shared ways of working, oops, went to 450. Effective communication, another high one there, £450. And doing with, not doing for approach, 375. So in terms of the value that we place, they were our most important today. That might change at any given time, depending on the circumstances that you're working in and what's most important to that. So let's hear from each individual team. Like I said at the beginning there, rather than just giving it words, give examples of and explain why they're important to you. So we're going to start off with the collaborators, please. What are you all about? What's important to you?
Firstly, shared agenda, all working to the same aims, utilising our different skills.
Okay.
Being transparent and open about our work and practices and communication, which would give us confidence in our roles. Mutual respect. We all have a role to play. We should respect each other's opinions and not undermining other agencies in our work as well. Having a learning culture, learning from each other, being open to new ways of working and new ideas, and sharing good practice. And our most important one that we were determined to get was skilled practitioners.
Why was that so important to you then?
Because if you've got skilled practitioners, it doesn't matter what role you're in, whether you're a strategic lead or you're a frontline member of staff, you're all skilled in your own individual roles.
Okay.
And if you've got that learning culture, you're learning from each other as well.
Yeah.
So we felt that the mix that we got was actually quite a good one, because it encompassed some of the ones that we didn't get as well.
Okay. Well, you made it encompass something.
Yeah.
Lovely. Okay. Thank you very much to the team over here. And moving on to Hartlepool's Real Deal. We waited a while for you to make some beds for us. There was a reason behind that, I guess. We were strategizing. Can you give us a description of what you purchased and why?
We held out for effective leadership. In the spirit of drama, we talk about our journey on train stations. And we wanted effective leadership because we thought we had a station with a station master being the leader, with a clear vision and a start. We'd have a timetable and everyone would know the timetable of our journey and manual. Everyone would know what was happening, the families as well as staff. We'd have who carriages of the partners on board, and the train driver could be the leader or could be different people in the lead at different times, in line with the family's journey. There might be barriers, but we negotiate and overcome with our partners. The driver might change our needs, as I mentioned. We might have some stops when we pause for reflection, and then we work together to a clear destination. And sometimes we might have to stop and change tracks.
Fantastic. Beautifully done. Excellent. Thank you very much. Take us on a little journey here. That was beautiful. Thank you. Okay. Originally named Team 3. Team 3. Go for it.
Well, there are a number of us doing this, but we start with shared vision. That's the stars to steer by. We don't know where we're going if we haven't got a shared vision. And it hooks up our passion, because it's quite tough work, so we'll need to keep connecting up with our passion. That's what shared vision is essential.
Lovely.
To
Fantastic.
celebrate achievement by building on people's strengths, because we believe that everybody's got the ability and capacity to achieve, even just small achievements. To try and get away from the negatives, so that we can move forward and share best practice and all celebrate everybody's achievements together as a community.
Fantastic. Lovely. Thank you very much.
Mission to challenge ourselves, the family and
And I've got this one,
Dun, 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 with the problem.
which is,
Feel the wet part.
which is actually access to this incredibly philanthropic billionaire. What it is really is the ability to promote and publicise what we do, because we feel that if nobody knows what we can do, then we wouldn't be getting the best cases that we can challenge, that we can take.
Excellent. Okay. So the ability to promote and publicise. Lovely. And then the last one, the shared vision. Oh, we mentioned that again. Did that one. Yeah, shared vision. You did that one again. Okay. Fantastic. Thank you very much. He's got quite a nice range there as well. Okay, the visionaries. What do you stand for?
practice sharing. We didn't want shared visions, we thought practice sharing, learn, we would encompass things like the learning function, also talk about.
You can't come see how they're trying to just get on the lost. Can't do that.
Learn from each other and learn from best practice.
We also got investment in the front line, so if we don't invest in frontline workers who are delivering these services, ensure the skilled, then we are not going to get sustainable outcomes for families.
Relationships with others, so we want to not only the positive between staff members, community staff and
all of those relationships, not just the one-on-ones, but everything. Okay, lovely.
And we've got collaborations, so collaborations that we can also work with it's more effective to work with the team of people.
Fantastic.
But consistency, to learn from the fact that we've got the cameras like to change the workers and invest in themselves. And the feedback from the workforce is that we're constantly restructuring and reframing, we don't often feel that they set into the work and get good outcomes, so this is to say, revision is called headline.
Fantastic. We saw a little example of that even in the scenario this morning where it was around things changing and having that consistency and things going on. Lovely, thank you very much. Next team, thank you. 5 for futures. Where are we guys?
So we've got shared systems, that was the absolute foundation, which is what we wanted, because with that we've got a lot of the things that we weren't able to bid for, so that was transparency, consistency, collaboration, partnership working, accountability. And then it cuts across all the different social disciplines and across partnerships and agencies. And actually is that foundation and integral to making it work. But with the shared system, you can hold partners to account, not in a fussy, annoying, defensive way, but they're just there accountable because you can all see you're all working to that same framework. And with that, we have what's called the whole systems approach, which is that investment in strategic leadership. So everything that we do underpins that whole system approach. And ensures that we're all working to that vision and we all understand exactly where we're going. Really important for us though is about families because they're fundamental to this whole system. But what we want to do is move from dependence to independence and create families that build on strengths and can actually make a difference. So ultimately the water needs in the future, and probably wouldn't have to invest so much. But it's about improving outcomes and empowering families. And everyone, I've missed it, I'm sorry, but every single person within that requires clarity of role, and that's what we're working towards. So.
Fantastic. Great, very clear and concise. Finally, Team 6. Got a lot of exciting beds, a lot of things you really wanted, so tell us why.
What's that about? We chose effective communication as the main one. It's not presuming anything, it's sharing information. That's between organisations, it's between families. Because if you're not all on the same page enough to deal with like that, you know, old information, you can't really move forward to deal with things that may have just cropped up. There might be issues that, you know, you're working off old information and it's not really going to help and stuff like that.
So the other thing we chose was no-blame culture. So our system has a no-blame culture, so when things go wrong, there may be multiple complex reasons, and we need to learn the lessons through reflective practice, rather than blaming individual practitioners unless they are at fault, in which case further training may be
Okay.
Yeah, we also bid for zero tolerance of ineffective practice, and any system that we were asked to bid for was about systems, and any system is only as good as every single part of that system. It doesn't matter whether you're in the same organisation, in a partner organisation, you get what you accept, and if you only accept the best and you've got zero tolerance for anything that's ineffective, ultimately that's going to give you the best service for the families and the children.
Lastly, but importantly, we said openness to change, because with all the systems that are in place and all the frameworks that people work from, being open to change, people change, culture changes, time moves on, so openness to change is imperative to keep your organisation functioning as it should.
Fantastic. Lots of nods of the heads for all of you as well. Thank you very much. A bit of fun with that exercise, but really the value is in what you present back at the end, because that's things that, as a team, are important to you. Okay, as I said at the beginning there, some of these things might be more or less important at any given time, but it is about us putting it into practice. It's all very well coming away on these days where we get together and we have fantastic conferences and we do good networking and we have lots of passion in the room and lots of great conversation, but it's about what happens when you walk out of that door at the end of the day, really. It's about continuing to take a bit of personal responsibility to make all of this happen as you move forward. Thank you very much for taking part in that exercise. As a suggestion from us, I think it might be nice in terms of this conference this year, if you maybe log these top sales in some way, and perhaps that's something that we move forward with as an organisation, as a partnership, saying, well, these are the things that we place most value on, and this is what we're going to do to make that happen. A very big thank you, guys. We've really enjoyed working with you today, and I'm going to hand over to Malcolm.
Yeah, and let's show our appreciation. If I can introduce Ben Lewin from the Early Intervention Foundation, who's going to pick up, I'm sure, on many of the themes that have been developed throughout the day so far.
Thank you. I'd like to say a big thank you to Jane for putting me just after the drama. I've no idea how I'm going to follow that. You're ready for a traditional presentation, aren't you? Yeah. Ah, thank you. Very kind. More, come on, talk like that. It's very humbling being at the front and being £25 in favour. Good answer.
Yeah, do you want to let everybody get back on the stage?
Sure. Yeah, this is the moment when I tell a joke.
Yeah.
Not very good at telling jokes. But I'm hoping that you'll be a receptive audience. The worst audience, while people move about their seats, that I've ever spoken to was early on in my career. I got one of those jobs that had been allocated to a senior manager who didn't want to do it, who allocated it to someone else, and eventually it got down to me at the bottom of the food chain. And it sounded glamorous. I used to work for Save the Children. and it was speaking at a week-long conference in Portugal, by the sea, staying in a 5-star hotel. I thought, it's fantastic. So I said, what do you want me to talk about? He said, oh, it doesn't really matter. Just important that we have a presence there. Say what you like. And so the conference was amazing. There were 1,000 people there, practitioners, politicians, children and young people. It was an incredible blend. I've never seen anything like it in this country, but you can imagine having 1,000 people. It was the most enormous rooms that people operated in, but it was a combination of workshops and presentations. Brilliant event. Anyhow, come the final day, they had this panel of speakers from a variety of countries to talk about children's rights, essentially, in their countries. I was 4th up out of 4. Bearing in mind the audience was probably about 40% children who didn't speak the languages of these speakers, including English. They had translators, so they had it, but what particularly impressed me was that they came prepared. They had packs of cards, they had games that they were playing, so by the time it reached me, it was hopeless. I could have said anything. And I only had about 10 minutes left because all the other speakers had overrun. So I told a joke in Portuguese. Everybody laughed, probably because I did a Berliner donut thing by mistake. And then I said the first thing that came to my head, really. It didn't matter. People went away happy because it was short and there was a joke. So that is the philosophy that I'm applying today. I haven't really got a joke, and I'm going to keep it short, in part because actually you don't need to hear a huge amount more from me, because you're going to get some of the similar messages that you've already had today. In fact, it's no great surprise, because the source material for some of the content that you're hearing about from me is the same source material that Gordon talked to you about, because we have collaborated on these important reviews. So I'm going to remind you, using my style rather than Gordon's style, about some of the things that you've heard. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about the practical application of those. But then I'm going to pass over to you, because there is a huge amount of experience in this room. And it's not just about hearing from people who are on the platform, it's about you talking to each other and reflecting on what you've heard and what you do with it next. Because this is only a stage in the journey, not the first stage. You're ahead of many other places in Hartlepool because you've been talking about relationships and conflict for a while. But it's still a journey, and there are lots of further steps that you need to take. So having the opportunity to talk about those, I'll give you 10 or 15 minutes to do that, and then we'll take some feedback. So, a couple of words about... hang on, here we go. A couple of words about the Early Intervention Foundation. Hopefully you've heard of us before. Some of you might even know what we do. We are part of a network of What Works centres established by government, and the idea is to try and make evidence more accessible. It's a huge challenge to take what is known from science and in the world of academia and apply it to what people do in their day-to-day work. And part of that is because, as we've already heard, the language, the vocabulary just feels so different. And often the questions that we can answer through research are not the questions that you're facing when you're sitting down with two parents who are arguing with each other. So they don't always connect well together. And part of our job is to try and help you make sense of the evidence. And we do that through 3 different ways, I guess. The first is that we look at what the evidence is saying, and we synthesize it, we bring it together, we challenge it, we write it up, and we publish reviews that bring together that story of the evidence. And you can find a whole host of examples of evidence reviews on our website. We run events, and we participate in events like yours to talk about what the evidence is saying, to help people to understand it, to get the messages across so that you can reflect on what you do with it. And we also work with local areas to help them apply the evidence in practice. Often hearing it and understanding it isn't enough. It's then having the opportunity and the permission and the systems that we've all just been talking about that free you up to act on what you want to do. And so the map on the right-hand side of this slide shows you just some of the areas that we've worked with. We've been going about 4 years. It's very important that in our work, it's not just about the academia side of this, it's also about the practical application, working in local places. possible. So, this is the recap bit. Having Gordon here is fantastic, actually, because he's, well, let's face it, he's swallowed the book, all the books, hasn't he? He had just an incredible knowledge, which is hard to find in anyone else because of his depth of knowledge about research over 20, 30, 40 years even. So hearing about what the evidence says directly from Gordon is fabulous. I'm going to try and simplify that a little bit now, just as a recap. So the first important point is that conflict between parents is normal. Gordon talked about this. Conflict happens all the time. In fact, my partner's just sent me something about resolving conflict. I won't go into the details, but it is just a normal part of life that we fall out, sometimes. And it is the nature of that conflict which is so important in terms of impact, both on the parents themselves, but particularly on the children. And again, we covered this earlier, there is something really important about constructive conflict for modelling and showing how to resolve disagreement. It's been really important in all of our lives when we've seen it, and it's crucial for children. And we've already heard about what some of those characteristics of constructive conflict are. It's a willingness to seek a compromise. It's not losing the warmth in the relationship even if you disagree. It's reaching the point of resolution and apologising. You know, those are the sorts of behaviours that make conflict constructive. Destructive conflict, in contrast with that, has an intensity about it. And it's all about the frequency and the fact that it isn't resolved. And those are things which leave the conflict festering and destructive, particularly for children who are struggling to make sense of how these two people who are hugely important in their lives have very different visions of the world and can't agree. So, again, a recap. I'm not going to talk in any detail about this. We've already heard about how parental conflict impacts on children. I guess Gordon and I have both been preachers to converted here. You're in the room because you believe in this and because you think it's important enough to do something about. But many people just don't get the importance of this yet. So finding persuasive ways to explain to people how destructive conflict with parents has short, medium, long-term and intergenerational impacts is really crucial. And some of the people who are most important to persuade are very distant. Some of those people won't even be in the room today. I mean, I'm interested to see who is in the room today. How many people have we got who are local government employees? How about from the NHS? Nobody. How many from schools? Ah, good number from schools. What about the voluntary sector? Okay, lots from the voluntary sector. Housing? The police? Anyone else that I haven't thought of?
Early years.
Pardon?
Early years.
Early years working for
myself.
For yourself? Okay, PPI.
Early education.
Yeah. So there are some key partners who have a stake in this, but just don't know it yet. Actually, the absence of having someone bringing a health perspective on this is not uncommon. In fact, a lot of the pioneers in this work have struggled to get engagement from the NHS. Actually, it's not practitioners, because practitioners get this. It's the strategic leaders who just don't realise quite how important parental conflict is for their service moving forward, and what a drain it is on their budgets, the things that they're most concerned about. So a couple of quick words about the scale of the issue. I was tempted just to leave this slide blank, but I gave you a generic graph instead. The reality is, we don't really understand what the scale of this issue is. A lot of the data that we've got is old, it's at a national level. The story about how important this issue is and the impact it has on parents in Hartlepool, for example, will be something that you want to know more about. The sorts of things that we do know about the scale of this issue, though, are that in terms of the proportion of children living in couple-parent families where parents have distressed relationships, that's estimated at about 11%. So more than 1 in 10 children in couple-parent families are living with a relationship that is considered distressed. That's according to DWP's figures 3 or 4 years ago. Relate estimate that 1 in 5 couples living together are in relationship distress. 1 in 5, 20%. And there's a particular issue, again, which Gordon touched on, about worklessness. So the prevalence of conflict in families where neither parent is in work is estimated to be 3 times higher than in other families. And what about for families where the parents aren't living together? Again, the same kind of quality of data. We don't really know the story, but there is an issue about scale which makes it clear that this is a hugely important issue. According, again, to DWP data, almost half of children living in separated families don't see their non-resident parent regularly. And we know that there are over 2.5 million separated families in the UK, so this isn't a small-scale problem. There are about 100,000 children affected by divorce every year. And the economic costs of relationship breakdown were estimated by the Relationships Foundation a couple of years ago at £47 billion. £47 billion is one of those numbers that is meaningless, actually, because it's just too big to get your head round. But if you think about it, it dwarfs the scale of the majority of resources that are available at a local level for support services for families. Collectively, it is a huge proportion of the investment in family support. So when the organisations in Hartlepool are trying to make reductions in their budgets, it is hugely dwarfed by the amount that is spent on tackling the problem to do with conflict in relationships. So, again, a brief recap. Who's affected by parental conflict? Children and young people of all ages, all genders. We know that the risk of conflict is higher at key transition points in family life. That could be the birth of a new child, it could be going to school, it could be separation in a relationship. We also know that families in poverty or under economic pressure are at greater risk. Gordon talked through very powerfully about the family stress model, which I think is a really important way of telling the story. Another part of this story is what this means for existing family services. Because actually, this is one agenda amongst many. There are stories in Hartlepool, like everywhere else, about dementia, about pressure on acute hospital services, about a range of other really powerful and urgent issues. So finding some space to show how this is part of a story that won't go away if you just keep your head down. This is part of the narrative that local places need to take account of. For example, as we've already heard, all the investment that goes into parenting interventions that are focused on the parent-child interaction, we know that is affected by, where it is affected by parental conflict, it won't be as effective. So investing just in parenting interventions that don't take account of conflict between parents is not going to work in the way that we want it to. We also know, as has been discussed at some length, certainly on the table I was sitting at, that there is a particular story about fathers here fathers both that are disproportionately affected by couple conflict and are more likely to be withdrawn and hostile as a result of it, but also less well served and engaged with by public services at the moment. We need to find a different way to draw them into support. And there is no getting away from the fact that with resources being so restricted at the moment, under such pressure at the public purse, unless we address this drag on public resource and tackle conflict between parents, we're never going to bluntly balance the books. So, I wanted to go on then to talk about the fact that reducing parental conflict is everybody's business. And there are some opportunities here, because conflict between parents, although it feels like a relatively new agenda still, is already starting to influence national policy. There are messages about conflict between parents that appear in a whole host of policy drivers that are influencing how services are shaped locally and nationally. Finding those hooks and using them to influence decision-making locally is hugely important. And it's not always the usual suspects. It's not people who are specialists in couple counselling or who see themselves as experts in helping people to manage relationships. Actually, this is an issue for anyone who works with children, young people and families. This is an issue for people who think their job is something completely different. They might think their job is about teaching children, for example. But we know that schools have a really important relationship with parents and can't get away from the fact that unless children come to school ready to learn, they're not going to thrive and succeed in that environment. So lots of pastoral support in schools is increasingly having to take account of the relationship at home as well as on the school site. There's something really important about the people who encounter families and have a relationship with them that gives them the opportunity to spot things not going quite right. It could be a community police officer, a PCSO. It could be someone who's working in housing. It could be someone in a children's centre who's focused on more holistic support. It actually could be almost anyone in the workforce that works with parents. And often it's not about the job role, it's about the person who's been really good at building trust. And these are just a couple of quotes that have come from the local family office sites, who are some of the areas that have had investment from the Department of Work and Pensions over the past couple of years, to illustrate the point. I have to say, I wish I was doing an auction. But hey. So, a couple of other messages then before I want to hand over to you. The first is that we did some qualitative work a year or so ago. We wanted to find out what attitudes were towards parental conflict and parental conflict services. And these are some of the messages from that review. You can find it on our website if you want to read up on it. Essentially, parental support for families who are in conflict is limited at local level. And there's a patchwork of support available. It depends on the area, it depends on the investment, and a lot of it feels quite fragile because it's in the voluntary sector. And we all know what's happened to a lot of funding for voluntary sector organisations over the past 5 years or so. So it's very hard to understand what's available. And there hasn't been a coherence about how it's been developed and organised, which makes it very hard to navigate. We also found from talking to practitioners that they often lack the tools and knowledge to spot risks, to identify families that are vulnerable, and they also lack the knowledge about who to refer them on to. There's also something missing in this slide about about what you do rather than just passing over the problem to someone else. And it was really interesting to watch the role play this morning, because finding the right questions is so hard, isn't it? I mean, we were all trying to find the right questions to put into that case study, but some of those questions led us up completely the wrong way. I don't know how other people were feeling. It's very easy to try and come in with an open question, but for it to be taken the wrong way and just to exacerbate the conflict. So it's very easy to understand how practitioners would lack the confidence to deal with something which feels incredibly personal if they haven't had the chance to think about how they're going to approach it, if they haven't been trained to deal with a high conflict situation, how to ask those tough questions. And we also found that families struggle with the whole stigma of this. They don't want to talk to a stranger about a very personal issue of their relationship. It's seen as a failure. And they're much more likely only to seek help when they're in crisis. So, a few quick words then about what we found from our reviews. On the right-hand side of this slide, you can see it's a summary of our evidence standards. As a What Works Centre, we've created standards so that we can look at the evidence that people have published about interventions and say how robust that evidence is. How confident can you be that if you use this approach, it's going to work for all your families? So obviously the higher up that you go to level 4, the more confidence you can have that something has been tried and tested and repeated and is likely to work for you too. So what we have concluded is this. First of all, early intervention is worth investing in. Again, this is points that Gordon made. It makes no sense to wait until things have gone seriously wrong, because the problems are much harder to tackle at that point. And there are lots of examples of interventions which have some evidence that they can be effective. But the evidence base that we have at the moment is weak, particularly UK evidence base. A lot of the interventions that have been tested, that have had robust trials and evaluations, come from other countries. We know that that doesn't necessarily mean they will translate well in this country. We need to grow our own evidence base. And that depends on everybody in this room and many more. Because building evidence isn't about scientists and researchers. It's about people working with families, understanding about the importance of measurement, the importance of consistency, the importance of building the story about how you would know that this really makes the difference for families. So as you know, there is support available to help you along this journey. Some of these things are EIF specific. Some of them are a new program that DWP are creating. But again, you've got some momentum in Hartlepool, which is hugely exciting. Some of the support will just come from within your network, talking to each other, sharing your own experience. I want to just bring some of the EIF tools to your attention. This is a snapshot of a website, so it's not intended to be read now, but just we have created a new Reducing Parental Conflict Hub. It's a central repository of information about evidence and learning, and it helps you to navigate some of the materials that are available and make sense of them. So it's organised around key questions. You've got an example here, what is the problem? And then links you to key information that is on the EIF website. We also have a guidebook, which is where we put information about programmes that have reached at least level 2 in our evidence standards. So they've been able to show that they are likely to work for families, at least in one other place. What the guidebook does is it tells you about the strength of evidence, it tells you what difference you can expect if you apply this approach, who it's for, and so on. If you go to our guidebook, it already includes some interventions that have evidence of reducing parental conflict, and they're listed here. This is by no means the whole story about programs and reducing parental conflict. In fact, all of these ones are actually parenting programs which have an element to them which addresses parental conflict. There are a whole host of other interventions that are yet to reach the evidence standard, but may be ideal for the sorts of things that you're looking for. The crucial issue here is about the evidence journey, continuing to test and learn and check whether it works for you. We've also recently published a practical guide for commissioners. And the goal of this was, again, rather than starting with an evidence review and publishing a 200-page document, to say, what are the questions that commissioners are looking at? And by commissioners, this isn't just people with commissioner in their job title. This is people who are thinking, how do things work at the local level? How can we make it work better? How does this local system support families that are in conflict? And it looks at how you answer questions like the three that are listed in the slide here. What do you need to know about the impact of interparental conflict on children? How can you measure locally what the impact of that is? And what can you do about it? And it draws particularly on some of the experience from the local family office sites, but much more. We're really keen actually to include some of Hartlepool's learning here, both through case studies and other things that you generate as you travel on your journey. We want the Commissioner Guide to grow and develop because other people will want to hear from you. The wildcard idea of telling a story about what you've learned, sharing it, people will want to hear your story too. And this is just a heads up, I guess. Some of you may have seen our maturity matrices before. It's a standard format that we use for supporting local places to think about that local system and to support them to plan it, to look at what's already strong and to look at the things that you want to tackle. It's interesting that the crossover with the exercise that we've just done, in fact. All of the things that seem important for local systems to work well together, for local organisations to connect together what they're doing. What we've done is we've told that story and how it relates to parental conflict and identified indicators that would tell you whether you were actually at a very early stage in this or much further down the track and mature. So we'll be publishing this towards the end of March, and it may be something that you want to look at. Also, hugely important for this agenda, nationally and in Hartlepool, will be the DWP's new Reducing Parental Conflict programme. How many people have heard about this programme to date? It's a very quiet story at the moment. DWP have been doing a lot of thinking about this, and I think the time is right for a much higher profile. Because the programme itself is a combination of things which are listed in the slide. There'll be a new network of people who will provide support at a local level, regional leads on reducing parental conflict. So it'll be someone for you to work with who will connect you to other people doing similar things, who will be able to support and challenge you. That team is just being recruited at the moment. There is also the network of local family offer ambassadors, so people who have already travelled this journey over the past 2 or 3 years, who have lots of experience of the things that didn't work quite so well as the things that did, who can help guide you if you have specific questions. And DWP are making funding available for workforce development. A lot of the local family office sites, and DWP supports this, have stressed the importance of investing in the workforce. Unless people who directly work with families are confident to have those difficult conversations, none of the rest of it works. It's all just noise. So it's crucial that actually the workforce feels equipped to have these tough conversations, to ask open questions, to diffuse conflict. We'll hear more about DWP's investment towards the end of this financial year. So I've skimmed over a lot of stuff here, and hopefully it's given you a broad sense of the Early Intervention Foundation's interest in this. I think I couldn't really talk what Gordon did because he is the expert in the detail of it. Fabulous to have him here. But if you'd like to know more, not just about what's happening in Hartlepool, but to hear more about the national agenda and how you can engage in that, we're running 2 events at the end of March, one in London, one in Manchester. We'd love to see you there. It'll be an opportunity both to hear from people standing on the platform, not me, so it'll be someone new from the IF there, to hear from DWP about their national programme, and then to get involved in some workshops looking at mobilisation, how you turn this broad, massive information into something practical. And on that note, I would like to challenge you in your table groups, given what you've heard, both about things that are happening in Hartlepool and what Gordon said, what I've said, and the experiences of the drama as well, which have been fantastic. What do you make of it? How do you turn it into something that helps you tomorrow, next week? What are you going to do next? How much time have we got? Who's in charge of time?
Well, for our programme, it's got about 10 minutes.
Okay, so a quick conversation then, in your table groups. What do you do next with what you've heard? And then we'll just take feedback from people who feel they want to share something with us.
I'm wondering how reducing violence attention in a way that is very different. Not so bad, like the service drivers somebody called me actually. I
think it was in North East London, Southwest. I don't know where the other one is. What they've done, what do they repeat? They've got about 12 different what they're doing is trying to promote things in the local authorities by the more information to that'd be
I think trouble with that is that if you start to work with people who aren't their priorities, you fail to get that motivation. So you do that first, and you want to how do you do it in a frame that is both supportive and motivational, isn't it? I think that's the skill. And that's
Okay, if I can bring you back in, please. It feels like we've covered so much today, doesn't it? It feels like it's been a really full day, and there's more to come as well. But, so, just a quick opportunity for reflections. Is there anyone who would like to share something from the All Table discussions about what you do next with this?
Suppose we're looking at the workforce development side of things and how to ensure workers are aware of the issue and are confident but also competent in asking questions and what to do when parents come back to them with something. So more than one keep interventions maybe they can deliver, but also when to refer them for special support. We also talked about the continuum as far as domestic violence and parental conflict and kind of looking at the distinction of what we can do.
Yeah. Can you hear at the back?
No, I've never been told I've been quiet before. So I was just talking about workforce development and how practitioners can be confident and competent in responding to situations, so developing interventions that they can use, knowing when to refer on to specialist support, but also knowing about the continuum of interparental conflict and domestic violence, and the distinction between the two. Okay.
This is Kath, by the way, who is a local family offer ambassador site from Newcastle. So, good person to talk to if you want to find out more about their work. Any other thoughts that people have had? You're welcome to store them up and just muse on what you've heard, but if you've got something to share, yeah?
I thought maybe doing more in schools.
Yeah.
Because the teachers and schools are picking up conflict in impact on the times and the children are exposing.
And do you have a feel for the kinds of things that might work in schools that you'd want to see?
It was more around that heading called Loud and Better that was on our flyers. Actually, it's part of relationships education, isn't it? And the purpose of education is to educate children so they're prepared for the future, whatever that future is, and part of that future is being parent. And actually having that foresight to think right from a very early age, the language we're using in conflict resolution, how we show them what everything we've heard today about conflict is okay as long as it's resolved in the right way, and I think that could be possibly built a little bit more into education.
Yeah. That feels really important. I mean, you might expect me to say that because I work for the Early Intervention Foundation, but we're not just concerned about today's parents, we're concerned about tomorrow's parents. This whole thing about intergenerational, repeating the stories, feels hugely important. Any other points that people would want to share?
We were talking about what it seems to be very firmly embedded in culture, this acceptance of parental conflict, and when we're working in situations where people are not wanting to or able to engage in a change process, and that can be very time consuming and very valued to making progress. We were also reflecting on the focus that we have a lot on working with mothers who perhaps tend to be in that protective role for the children, and we seem to accept the absence of fathers and not attempt even to include them in interventions, and perhaps we need to refocus some of our energies around addressing that gap.
I know that was a topic of conversation on this table too. What does the evidence tell us about how to engage fathers was the question which we couldn't answer at this point. Yeah, big challenge though. Any other points that people want to share? Yeah?
We talked about...
Could you speak up please?
Sorry, we talked about exploring what the local parenting offer would be. So, because we often refer parents or mothers, predominantly mothers, to a parenting programme, but actually unless we look at some root causes, that could potentially cause a cycle of people coming back into services because the parenting programme has been attended, but actually the relationship impact on everything that's done in a parenting programme, because we haven't looked at the root cause.
Yeah.
I work for the children's centres. I am the children's centre worker for employability, so I'm working on the root cause, if you like, of the body. So I'll go in, I might be asked to go in by a social worker or part of the early help team to do a specific piece of work with the family around learning opportunities or getting into employment or apprenticeships and volunteering. We also have a DAC programme and it's quite well attended as well. And I started off with the parenting team as well. So there are good pieces of work going on, I think, already, and good partnership working, but it just needs to be
again.
Yeah, amplified.
You know, we need to get to know the other agencies who are doing similar types of work and work together more effectively, I think. But I think sometimes it's just time, isn't it, to actually build those relationships.
Yeah. Celebrating, recognising and celebrating what you already know, what you're already good at, and making use of that feels hugely important. Nobody has got this crack. There isn't one place you can go to who has done it and it's perfect and you just copy what they're doing. Because it wouldn't work here anyway, it'd be someone else's copy. Using the assets that you've already got feels really important. Any final comments? At the back.
My comment on the table.
Yes.
How powerful it is when there's an investment in a new post which is dedicated to leading and managing the early health function across the town. And that sends such a powerful communication about how important it is.
And I guess that's, you can be the change that you want to see, as they say. So actually, if you're only going to do one thing from today, going and talking to someone else who you think needs to hear this in the next week, that would be important. And see where it takes you. Because actually, this agenda, once you start to understand it, it seems obvious, doesn't it? You know, why have we not organised public services around this agenda previously? How have we been so blind to the impact of parental conflict on everything that we're so passionate about anyway? It seems obvious. Some of the people just need to hear that story and they'll jump on board. I think I probably need to draw it to a close. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ben. Earlier on, there seemed to be, despite recent global events, still some support for democracy, so we're going to have a little bit in the hall now. We've got, it's been a really full day, and I'm conscious people are probably ready for a break. There is coffee outside. However, I'm also conscious some people are looking at watches. We've got one really important session left, which Martin and Jane will be talking about where next in Hartlepool. Two options. Option A, we have the coffee break now and come back. Option B, we plough on and then have a cup of coffee and a chance to mill about and those who need to leave. So we either finish a bit early and plough on or we have a coffee break. So all those in favour of coffee break now, please show your hands in the air. No, it takes too long to queue for it. No. Second, so I've taken that with people who prefer to, all those in favour of pressing on and carrying on. Right, well done everybody. Can I introduce Jane and Martin, who many of you will know.
Tell you what he said.
Unlike Sally this morning, I refused to be mic'd up. In fact, I insisted on it. I'm quite disappointed that I haven't got the Britney style sort of little headpiece there. But as Malcolm alluded to there, what Jane and I from the Healthy Relationship Partnership team are going to do is shine a particular spotlight on what Hartlepool is doing and what's coming up in the future. And the focus of this is about what's happening, how you can get involved. But as you'd expect, I think it's really important that we actually give a little bit of context about where we actually started. And this is mentioned a little bit by Sally this morning, but I think it's important to say that as a group of organisations in 2014, the organisations that have gone on to be the partnership, we were already seeing in our day-to-day practice why this mattered to families. Those common sense notions were there. We could see the impact on children, and importantly, and challenging, was that we were seeing increased demand for a lot of our services and what we do, including some of our specialist care services, and we were doing this with the same, at best the same amount of resource, but often actually less. So it's been a difficult time and has continued to be. However, in 2014, as in 2018, we saw strengths, we saw assets, and we saw things that could be absolutely built on in Hartlepool with the organisations and the practitioners that we have. Today's been testament to the fact that we've got stacks of people who are committed and passionate and utterly dedicated to making positive changes for children and families in the town. The thing that sort of we shared as a group of organisations is that, again, no rocket science, the early intervention and prevention agenda was always going to be better than late intervention. And working together was important. Sally mentioned it. No one organisation can do it all, so we needed to think about how we can actually do it together. And I'm pleased to say that my table actually got this item in the auction, but being done too was probably not all that helpful for children and families, but actually working alongside was probably far more helpful for them. So we set out a bit of a vision really, what we actually wanted, and that was for Hartlepool to have healthier relationships than anywhere else in the country. It's fairly ambitious. And what we actually did, so this bit is, this is just dead simple, 4 steps. Step 1, we formed a partnership. These are the organisations that have been involved, some of them are still involved in the partnership. Step 2, we developed an idea that actually fit with the other things that are either going on at the moment or were going to be going on. So Sally mentioned it this morning, the Transformation Challenge bid, Better Childhood in Hartlepool, was developed together at the same time as this piece of work. They dovetailed, they complemented each other, and they tried to set out a vision for Hartlepool that would actually support both agendas and really embodied and modelled that working together that is actually so very important. Step 3, we secured investment over 5 years from the Early Action Neighbourhood Fund, which has been invaluable to this work moving forward in Hartlepool, and we are very grateful to our funders for their support and vision for actually thinking about early action. And then step 4, we got cracking and started working with the vision. So I would definitely describe this as the easy bit. Like that was really quite straightforward compared to the actual ambition that we had in front of this. Now, the way we actually tried to do this, the idea that we had in Hartlepool was based around a theory of change. How are we actually going to achieve this vision? And this is the stripped down core version of what these activities were. So everything was based around 3 ideas really. The first was, and this is not in order of importance, we need them all, it's not a case of we can have 2 from 3. We needed, and we thought it was important, that the way people thought about the parental relationship was changed. We needed some recognition, as we've heard today, that conflict was normal, that it was normal for people to get into distress with their relationships, but the thing that didn't feel very particularly normal was people seeking help with that and seeking it at an early point. So we wanted to create a change in culture around that. The blue box at the bottom, we've talked about it a couple of times today, it was a very popular item in the auction, skilled practitioners. And you won't get any arguments from anyone in the room about that. So we wanted to be able to have a workforce in Hartlepool across sectors that could think about, work with and intervene with the parental relationship for the benefit of children. And the bit in the middle, you may be asking yourself why after lunch we went to an auction about healthy teams and healthy systems. And this is a really crucial bit that's often a little bit more hidden from sight in the work that we do within the partnership. And that is, if you're going to actually make sure that the investment in training, support, development of frontline staff is actually allowed to flourish, you need to make sure that the organisations that they're working in is actually going to enable that. I know, as I've spoken to many of you individually in the room about this, there is nothing worse than us spending our time on training events or courses that we then never put into action, because within 3 months we've really lost the key messages or the key bits of skills that have gone through. So if Hartlepool's going to do parental relationships and do it really well and reduce parental conflict, the organisations have to do it, as well as the individual committed, dedicated practitioners. So that's why we had our auction on healthy systems and teams. The gist was that what we would see from all of this is we'd actually see more people seeking help when the relationships got into distress. We'd see improved confidence, skills, knowledge, and for work with the parental relationship across the workforce. Then we'd see improved team and organisational relationships. And I just want to briefly mention that it's not always, and it's not only the relationships within organisations that really matter to this type of work, and work with helping and supporting vulnerable families. It's the relationships between organisations, and that's not an easy task either, particularly when we're all under pressure, when we all have our individual agendas. So all those things about shared vision, shared agenda, all very, very important things, easily said, much harder to achieve, but it doesn't mean we shouldn't work at it. And then, this is the clever bit, you see, the grey and the blue bit combine, and what you then get is you get organisations in Hartlepool are able to effectively identify and respond to parental relationships when they're in distress. And families know that they're going to get that support. And because there's been this vast culture change in how people think about seeking help for these relationships, you actually see an improved take-up of that support. Really simple, isn't it? And then because of for all of the evidence that we've heard today, what we can hope is that if the interventions are right, that there will be positive impact on the outcomes for children who are children now, for the parents who are parents now, and for the parents of tomorrow, and the children of tomorrow as well. So this is our theory of change. Everything was geared around this. I just want to briefly talk about what we've done so far, because this is sort of just over halfway at the middle of our programme. A lot of our activity to start with was trying to understand what this actually meant in Hartlepool, and I'm really grateful to partners, including some who've been in the room today, like partners from Future in Mind, that allowed us to use their existing sort of evaluation research and things that they were interested in for us to also say, but yes, what about the parental relationship? So these are a couple of things that we found out that just sort of told us where we were at. And none of this is a criticism, this is just about where we're at, but what we can build on. Of the common assessments that were completed across a 3-year period, we found that there was only 6% of them that actually had an assessment around the nature of a parental couple relationship. Now 6%, very, very small. Imagine if we only did 6% of things in life. Imagine how rubbish cake would be if we only did 6% of cake. It just wouldn't work. And actually we had a high number that made no reference to that relationship at all. So again, we saw an opportunity to be built on. We could see that when we got to the need for children to actually become looked after, relationship breakdown and conflict in that relationship was in a very, very high proportion of those families actually identified as factors that have had a direct contribution to the reason that those children needed to be taken into care. Schools have told us that they see this as a key influencer on whether or not children are vulnerable to mental health needs. And generally we had a workforce who were not as confident in being able to work with this, and it was up there with some other things that are quite challenging and difficult in the work that we do. Adult substance misuse, parental mental health, children's mental health. So we got a really clear idea, including from families, who told us that the relationship with practitioners was incredibly important as well. So we got a sense about what it meant for Hartlepool. Some of the interventions that we've introduced to Hartlepool is across our sort of 2 and 3/4 years is that we've had a number of activities that sought to bring new skills into Hartlepool by actually introducing new interventions that might work with the parental couple relationship, as well as trying to increase knowledge, awareness, confidence in work with that parental relationship. And also importantly, some of those key things about actually just being able to use a relationship with another person as a means for positive change, where communication fits as part of that, where empathy fits in that, where understanding fits as part of that. And Parents as Partners is a particular intervention that we've started, I'll speak about in just a second. But the other particular new thing that we've introduced is mentalisation-based therapy around couple therapy. Now that's at its early stages and the evaluations on that aren't quite in yet. So I just wanted to, I suppose, give some seeds of where there's some real sort of potential in this work with the parental couple. So Parents as Partners is a group work programme for parents who are either together or separate, but they are having some difficulty in both their own relationship and often in how they are parenting their children. And although we've had a relatively small number of programmes delivered, a relatively small number of couples actually complete the programme, we're seeing some really encouraging results for not only the adults in those groups, but also for the children of those families. So just to pick a couple out there, we see reduction in distress of 80% of the participants who finish the programme. We see a reduction in the conflict in 88% of the participants who actually finish the programme. We see reduction in child difficulties in 50% of the participants who finish the programme. So again, although it's small numbers, it's got potential, it's got promise. And the last thing, really, that we've been doing a lot of is we've been trying to champion the awareness, the prominence and the priority of this issue in Hartlepool. We've tried to increase the investment that's actually available for this work. We've contributed to research wherever it's possible. We've tried to share our learning, what we've done so far. We've presented to people who might be making decisions around policy in the hope that they can be interested in and value the work that we've done here in Hartlepool today. And Sally Robinson mentioned this morning. I think it's incredibly encouraging to see that the Hartlepool's Children's Strategic Partnership have placed improving family relationships and developing resilience as one of its key things to obsess over. And as I pass you on to Jane to talk a little bit about what we've had going on, I think what you might see is some of the very practical opportunities to actually how you individually, how you as an organisation might be able to get involved in helping Hartlepool to obsess over improving those family relationships. So at that point, I'll hand over to Jane.
Thanks very much. I'm going to share with you two pieces of work that we've been involved in the last few months. I'm not going to literally bring parents into the room, although I'm sure there are many parents in the room anyway, but I'm going to provide an opportunity for you to hear about what parents in Hartlepool think about this area of work. You will have also noticed that there have been a bank of sort of like monitors at the back and cameras today, and we talked about things having been live streamed. These are students from Cleveland College of Art and Design that have been working with us today. But this has been a bit of a journey because we've been collaborating with students from the college to make a film. So the film is really about what parents in Hartlepool think about this issue and what they think we should be doing. So I'm going to let the film speak for itself. Then I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about some research that Katie, one of my colleagues from the partnership, has been engaged in terms of representing parents' views. So we'll run the video first, and then I'll talk to you about the video, about the research.
Well, to be honest with you, I wouldn't know where to go. To be honest with you, I wouldn't know where to go. Go and seek advice from a counsellor or something like that.
We, our children are grown up now, so we're pretty much, you know, we're past that stage, but it was just a case of you share things together and you help each other through these situations and hopefully be able to sort things out when things go wrong.
I'd probably just go to my friends, really. They're probably my main point of contact. I'd just probably put it in the group chat. If I had any problems, I'd just probably whack it in there, and then if I had any other problems, I'd probably branch out to like family, like probably a cousin or something. Yeah. But I wouldn't know where to go like if I didn't have them, really.
I've got absolutely no idea whatsoever. I wouldn't know where to start on that one.
Okay.
I suppose the odd person might go to church, I don't know, maybe a church group or something similar, but I wouldn't know.
As a dad, it probably should be something that dads could go to, because I think women help each other.
Okay.
Whereas men can be a bit more loners.
We had a lady that came in a few weeks before Christmas, who'd said that she'd had a falling out with her partner and that services were kicking off about it, was the way she phrased it. And then she said, but who doesn't get a slap now and again? we had to kind of unpick all of that and explain to her that's probably not the best idea, so that we could then introduce her to support services. She would never have looked for that because she didn't see it as an inappropriate relationship. She thought it was perfectly healthy and perfectly normal.
What somebody else is suffering, there's loads of other people. And putting that across to them is that they're not isolated, they're not the only person. Because sometimes you see it from your own view and think, I'm not telling anybody they don't. No, I feel like this. And I think it's more getting that out to them. You know, you're not the only one, there is other people out there.
A lot of blokes out there, and I was like that before I went on the dance programme, would rather just shout and scream and like bash a door and rather just try and sort things out, you know what I mean? Or like not realising that you've got a problem to begin with, kind of thing. But it was all about how do you think your kids would feel if you, your child, seeing your child acting how you do.
The relationships that are evident between parents and children and families, you know, determines how that young person then moves forward and how they see things. And it's improving things for their future. Children hear a lot. Children pick up on feelings, as we well know, don't they? Absolutely. And they may not have to say anything, but they can sense what's going on as well, I think. Definitely.
That's a bit like how I used to be though, because I never used to think it affected kids until I actually learned the hard way and found out that it does affect them. They don't show it, but mentally they are.
I think also raising awareness is taking away some of the stigma about asking for help or realising there's a lot of help out there for relationships in whatever shape or format that relationship is. I think, you know, it does take away some of that stigma, and it's not that taboo thing then that, oh, you don't ask for help or you keep everything within the family. And, you know,
I think it's a strength if they can ask for help, because they recognise it and they're able to then hopefully access the help through ourselves and help them to move on.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
As much as we're trying to get the families in Hartlepool being able to think about this and talk about this, we're quite keen to get the organisations and services that are in contact with families confident in being able to think about these sort of issues within families.
As well that featured on the film, so thank you very much for suffering that probably excruciating embarrassment watching yourself, but thank you very much for that. I think what we learned from the film, and also backs up some of the community research that we've been engaged in, is that there's a general lack of awareness among the adult population about where to go for relationship support. That the reason is the justification for going for relationship support. So we're trying to, in our work in the Health Relationship Partnership, normalise that so that parents do feel that that is something which is legitimate. It is something that they are able to do. And I think we talked when Martin showed the theory of change, that we're wanting to raise awareness of the importance of the parental relationship and in being able to resolve conflict in a way that is helpful, but also to increase supply of people and resources available for those people when they do want to talk to someone about resolving difficulties differently. So the film was one way of capturing the views and the kind of perspectives of ordinary people in Hartlepool. We also collaborated with the Joseph Rowntree Foundation. They supplied some wonderful community researchers who were able to go out into the community and ask some questions of parents about what's it like to be a parent in Hartlepool. You'll see on the wall there, there's some lovely colourful thought clouds that give us some indication of the kind of things that parents talk about. But I'm going to share with you some of the kind of key messages that we got from that research. You'll see here some lovely washing line. There are some descriptions on what we described as the pants, which is things that are not so great about being a parent, and the things that are on the tops, which are things that are good. And these are the things that we asked parents about, how do you deal with and how do you, cope with the everyday ups and downs of family life, and what are the things that kind of, are of concern to you. We have 48 parents who contributed to our research through the interviews, focus groups and activities in the community. And I think the report, there is a copy of the report on the table, But if you want to go and look at the in-depth detail of the report, then please go onto our website, because I'm going to give you information about the website, which is launched today. The conference is not only an opportunity, obviously, to have heard from our guest speakers, but it's an opportunity for us here in Hartlepool to launch the activities that we want you to be involved in. So we're launching the website. There is a wealth of activity and resources on there that we want you to go to. So the research report is on there. It's a page turner. Get yourselves to the website. But I think it does tell us that, you know, one of the quotes on the front page there is about when it comes to relationships, you're kind of left there out on your own. So that's what we were doing. So what did parents tell us? You know, that I think, again, it reinforces all of the messages that we heard from Dawn this morning and from them. That, you know, that there are a number of other complex and varied priorities that families are dealing with. Financial problems, mental health or poor mental health issues, and requiring support around physical needs, or if you are a parent with a child with special educational needs, that can cause additional stresses and strains on the parental relationship. But we also heard that positive couple relationships can be a big source of support for parents who have these other stresses. So a protective factor. So we don't always, you know, need to think about relationships as being problematic. We see them as a protective factor for people who are struggling with a number of other complex issues. We also got the strong feeling, these are kind of key messages, that people do learn about their relationships and how to conduct themselves in relationships from their parents' parental relationships. And, very importantly, what people see, hear and feel within their family has a massive impact on their well-being, as well as on their own attitudes and behaviours as they grow up. So, I recommend the report. Has anybody watched The Secret Life of 5-year-olds? Yeah? Well, you might blink, you might miss this, but I want everybody to kind of concentrate, because this, I think, illustrates and kind of you know, sums up a lot of what we're trying to do here.
I know you're not finished, kids, but you can do that in a minute after you ate your dinner, okay? Stop running me, Richard. You're not the dad, okay? So you don't want to be not hungry now. Oh, sorry now.
Phrase I was trying to remember, which is out of the mouth of babes, and something I'm sure somebody could complete that, but I think that illustrates, I think, that children do hear and see and pick up the behaviours that they see around them. So we have been taking on board an awful lot of what parents have been telling us in Hartlepool about what they want to see. And like I said, we're trying to work with that concept of supply and demand. So we're trying to increase the supply of support. Click. That's it. So to increase demand, we need to have increased awareness of the importance of the parental relationship. I mean, part of today is part of that strategy. I'm sure not all of you today came armed with all of the information that you're going to leave with, so I hope that this has served its purpose in terms of raising that awareness. But also, parents are not aware of the services that are available. A lot of parents may be involved with services as well, but not necessarily being able to access that kind of support through the service that they are actually receiving. We also wanted to reduce the stigma around talking about relationships and to reduce the barriers that people have talked to us about in terms of accessing that support. So, what have parents said? Parents have said, I want to be able to go to places that I feel comfortable, not necessarily to a specialist relationship. It's very much what Ben was saying about being able to access support in places that people feel comfortable. So, you know, we've been talking to various community organisations about how they can increase their capacity, skills and knowledge and confidence in being able to ask questions about the couple relationship, about the parental relationship. So parents are telling us that they want to access that kind of support in non-stigmatised settings, and that those services could be, could have a role to play in better publicising those services. So they want flexibility, they want low threshold for engagement, We want the confidentiality, for it to be non-judgmental, and for there to be empathy. Quite a number of the qualities that we talked about this morning in terms of what we want from our practitioners. I guess the not being made to feel like a bad parent, I think, is really important. What we heard from parents in the research is that, in the main, most people want to do well by their children and maybe need some support in being able to do that. So, we have, in terms of an intervention or a kind of resource that's available for you and for the general public, we're launching today, this is, unless anybody's been very clever and gone online already, our new website, and it just whizzed through, this is very clever, I haven't done this, somebody who's very clever has enabled us to see what you can see on our website. So I'll just leave it to speak for itself. Where it's actually okay to use your phones. You know, like normally at the start of a conference, people say, oh, can you switch your phones off, whatever. We've been hoping that you've been using kind of like Twitter and using kind of like social media to let people know, because there are 100 people plus who've attended today. And, you know, as was mentioned earlier, if all of you go away to the website, have a conversation with somebody else, think about how you take this back to your workplace. And if the only thing you do is go and look at the website, then that would be one thing you wouldn't have done if you'd not come today. So, you know, we do want you to go and look. We want you to also contribute. This is a website for us in Hartlepool. This is for us. It's not about, you know, us 4 people here that sit in a cupboard at the Headland. We need to kind of make the out there so about involving you in that work. So, that brings me on to that kind of like, well, how can we get you involved? And I hope you all enjoyed your lunch. Yes? Well, there's no such thing as all that. There's no such thing as a free lunch, because we want you to be involved. And I'm going to give you some examples and some ways that you can be involved. You'll have seen in your pack there's quite a lot of materials. One of the materials, one of the leaflets you'll find, is for a family relationship network. Now, what we're looking for, building on all that lovely partnership, engagement and collaboration and all the things that we talked about earlier, we want to involve you in a family relationship network for us in Hartlepool. And it's about you as an organisation, an agency or a team that could be committed to supporting the parental relationship as a key factor in securing outcomes. The evidence base is, you know, I can't say the word, incontrovertible anyway, that one. We can't challenge that. The evidence base is there. We need to be supporting parental relationships. How can you do that? By ensuring your staff and volunteers are trained, supported, to have those purposeful and helpful conversations with service users about the quality of their relationship and how that might impact on their children or child or children. And it's about promoting your setting, wherever you are, as a place that parents can either access or be signposted to support. So that's what we're asking in terms of being signed up to becoming part of the Hartlepool Family Relationship Network. So there's a tangible thing that you can do. Another tangible thing, we are, again, in terms of building capacity, that supply and demand equation that we talked about, we're wanting to increase demand from parents, but we're also wanting to increase supply of practitioners who are skilled, but we're also wanting to develop an evidence base that we can skill up community members to become volunteer relationship advisors. Stop doing that. And it is a vital part of the Healthy Relationship Programme that we build capacity and unlock capacity in the community. We want this to be a sustainable piece of work that builds capacity and leads skills in the community when the programme finishes in 2020. So we have 2 models. One is that we would invite people to apply to become a volunteer and are trained within the programme, and then they're placed in community venues. We currently, in the last few weeks, we've started our first volunteer relationship advisor sessions in the community hub. So again, taking on board what parents have said about we need to have low thresholds, places to access support, that there's no stigma, so going into the community hub, which other people might recognise as the library, it's now called the community hub, that is where people will be able to access support of a volunteer relationship advisor. Or we can take an existing community group and actually go in and take that training to that community group. Because we're trying to change the narrative of what it is in communities, what they will say will be a healthy relationship. So we heard on the film there about some of the views of parents and practitioners about that kind of normalising of unhealthy relationships. So we want to try and address that by having members of the community trained to be able to have healthy conversations. And they're the trained and supervised within the Healthy Relationship Partnership Project team. So, again, another opportunity to either sort of take that away, think about people who might want to volunteer, or whether you want to be a host of your organisation for volunteer relationship advisor. This again is kind of appealing to the kind of more strategic and the kind of systems element of the programme. We have a Healthy Relationship Partnership Board, which is responsible for the overall strategy and outcomes. And you can see, I'm naming names because I think you need to know who you know is on our partnership board. So if you don't think we're doing it right, you should phone around them and say they should be doing things differently. So from Hartlepool Borough Council, Danielle, Nikki, Jackie and Deb are our partnership board members and are there to be guiding us on the work that we're doing. Alex from Bellevue, and then Graham Martin from Changing Futures North East. What we want to do, however, is to set up a reference group of people like you. You're our kind of like, I suppose, our market. And we want a reference group to kind of reality check what we're doing. Does this kind of feel appropriate for the way that your service is delivered, or the way that you're working with parents? And help us to implement the strategy and to help with sustainability. So we want that to be inclusive. There isn't a kind of a job spec or anything. We're just looking for people who have an interest in this, who can help us shape our strategy going forward for the next 2 years. And we've even got a date, so it's not like we're just leaving it sort of to be determined. So the meeting will meet on Tuesday the 20th of February, 2 till 4, and that will help us shape up the operational plan for the next 2 years. So again, another opportunity for you to get involved. And the other piece of work that is underway is about supporting the early help workforce. The Healthy Relationship Partnership is contributing to the development of an early help workforce strategy, working very closely with Nikki about how we can support that on the ground. And for that early help strategy to embrace the work that we talked about today, so that we are enabling our practitioners working in a multi-agency context to work with the parental relationship, because that is just so important. And it needs to be integrated within the kind of strategy being taken forward within the council and within the community. So that will be open to schools-based staff, water sector-based staff. We're looking for that to be inclusive, because we all need to be working as one collaborative system. So the programme for early health workforce development will be available through 2018. So, if you want to be involved in helping shape that up, get involved in the reference group. So the next phase is, I think that's the no such thing as a free lunch bit, and that's where Martin comes in.
Thanks, Jane. So yeah, this is the point where we're really going to ask you to think about everything that you've taken in today, everything you've heard, seen. We even got to interact with it in terms of the drama this morning and things. This is all about growth for this initiative, growth for this issue, growth for the commitment to it in Hartlepool and taking it forward. And we've made a couple of references to the idea of one conversation, and it's taken one conversation. We really do think that there's an awful lot that can be achieved through these small little changes that are taken forward by lots and lots of different people. The idea that it's just a one huge change is unrealistic. The likelihood that it could be far more impactful if lots and lots of people do it is definitely where we're at with it. So I'm speaking to you now to actually think about the evidence that we've heard about when the conflict in a parental relationship and when there's distress in a parental relationship has a real impact on children's lives. You see that in your everyday, I'm almost sure about that. But actually, imagine what that would be like if those children, those families, were in a context of a healthy relationship, a healthy parental relationship. Really have to think about what you'd notice that would be different about your day-to-day work. Would it actually be that some of those other things that can happen because of parental conflict aren't actually happening for those children anymore? In which case, does that mean we can keep them a bit more engaged in class? Does that mean we can get them a bit more engaged in our youth clubs, in our activities, and all those types of things that we do incredibly well? But I also like to think about if your organisation really embraces this principle of having healthy relationships and healthy systems, what would you notice about your work? What would you notice about your team? What would you notice about your organisation and what it actually did? So now it's pledge time. In your packs there is a sheet that is called Conference Pledges. So if you just have a quick look for those. I'm just going to have a couple of minutes for you to read down those, and this is where you're thinking about what of those specific activities, those tangible things that Jane's talked about, could you actually get involved in. And it might not necessarily be about you getting involved in it, it's about making sure that someone else from your organisation might do, influencing people. But work your way down that, and right now as we sit here, if you complete those, we'll unlock the doors. Has everybody had a chance to work their way down those and actually pledge? Yes? Yes. Right, we haven't got long to go, and we did promise you no role play, but that was a little bit of a lie, but it's dead easy, because all you actually need to do is be yourself in this bit. But it is interactive. So, on that pledge list, we can see there's a few to choose from. And what I'm asking you to do is, if you've pledged to do that thing, I just want you to stand up when I read it out. And if you've done lots of them, prepare to stand up and sit down an awful lot. So, the first one on there was, I will share the content of the conference with at least one other person when I'm back at my place of work. If you pledge to do that, stand up now. Great stuff. Stay standing if you want to receive updates from the Healthy Relationship Programme and you're going to sign up to the mailing list. Fantastic. Stay standing if you're going to attend, and I don't want any cheating here, by the way, we will look for you next week. Yeah, I will attend a Through Their Eyes event, campaign event next week. Honestly, I like it, that's a helpful start. Mutual trust. Nobody wanted to buy it earlier, but it's better. I'll investigate the extent to which parental relationships are understood and supported by my team in my organisation. I will visit hrpparticle.co.uk to see what is on offer to support parental relationships. I will promote the Through Their Eyes campaign through my organisation's social media. That will be really, really powerful and helpful next week. I'm interested in the work being developed by the Healthy Relationships Partnership and want to join the reference group. I want my team, agency or organisation to become part of the family relationship network in Hartlepool. I want to know more about becoming a volunteer relationship advisor. I want my organisation to be able to access or host a volunteer relationship advisor. I want to access training on how to support a parental relationship. It's absolutely fantastic, and I just want to take this moment to remind you that this has all been recorded. And in actual fact, we've streamed this live across the internet, so now the internet knows. So we will be checking up on these things. We're going to come round and collect the meat, and the last bit of interaction, apart from a huge round of applause obviously, is going to be making sure, on pain of death, that the evaluation forms are completed, because we really want to learn from this event. This is the first one that we've done, and your opinions are really very, very valuable to us.
If you would put their names on the evaluation forms, that would be really helpful.
Thank you very much for listening.
Very, very last word. Thank you for everybody for your contribution today, for giving up and dedicating your day to this conference. Well, we thank all of the presenters and the team at the back. I think the last thing is just to acknowledge the tremendous amount of work that it takes to pull something like this together behind the scenes and in preparation for this. So I think we can just show our appreciation to Jane and all the team.